Hello, and welcome to episode, I think, 16 of season 2 of My Dog Will Eat My Face. I was out of commission, unfortunately, for a little bit there. I didn't make a typical weekly podcast last week, so I do apologize for that. Don't worry, I did not keel over as some of you might expected. I should have put a feeler out just to let folks know I'm still alive. But, pardon me, I was not too much going on to really make a podcast. It's unreal. I'm on disability, and yet I fail to have the time to do a lot of things, and I find myself many days swamped, and I have programs that I constantly have to talk to and reapply to or keep updated. I have hospice care that comes and goes up to 3 times a week. I've got others, volunteers that come and go, frankly, and then I also have to maintain a typical home. I have to pay the bills and call companies that are screwing up like everyone else does. You sent me the wrong thing and I need to return it. Things everyone deals with. All of that while living alone and taking care of my dog and cooking to feed my fat face. All at the same time. So my days get pretty hectic for being disabled. I run the joke. I mean, I actually happen to have a home office where I live, and I've said several times now to myself, actually maybe many times to myself now, that I'm so thankful for it because I can sort of retire to it and focus on these tasks with these companies and phone calls and things I need to get done and the paperwork, and I feel like I'm at work. I feel like I'm working away. I'm doing, maybe not my last job that I had loved. I'm doing some crap job somewhere, but working nonetheless. I mean, it's just a real conundrum. It's the total inverse of what I would otherwise expect of somebody on disability. I am just so incredibly busy that I just sometimes have to drop things, and that's why I didn't do a podcast last week. So I apologize, and yes, I'm still alive one way or the other. However you might define that. So I'm still kicking, and no need to worry there. But on top of all that, I have to admit, over the last probably 3 weeks or so, I've been tremendously overwhelmed with a sense of sorrow, a sadness that's really overtaken how I feel from dawn to dusk, every day, every night, every waking moment. I feel a very strong undercurrent of despondency. And it's not pleasant, needless to say. It's not necessarily altogether unexpected, considering what I'm dealing with. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. But I want to talk about that today because I feel I have to. And when I do these podcasts, keep in mind, I know what I kind of want to talk about. There might be some scripting, but very little. And for the end of every single podcast, I generally leave it wide open for me to come to whatever conclusions that I might arrive at. So I do this for me, largely for me, because I'm selfish. No, but because it's helpful. It is helpful for me to talk through these things, and I use the podcast as that kind of what's a good word, hobble to get me through a lot of things, so if it helps others, if it helps other people, maybe. If it makes other people mad, maybe. If it makes other people bored, maybe. I just put it out there to the world, and that way I can at least say I was here before I go into that eternal abyss. But yeah, today I do want to talk about the sadness I've been experiencing. So it might not be a super jovial and fun podcast that you would otherwise expect. But we'll see. It might go that way at the end. And see, there I lied. I cracked up at my own stupid joke. So yeah, that's what I'm doing today. And I ask you to listen along and come with me and do what you may. So why do I want to talk about this? That is, why do I want to talk about my sadness? It is such a turn off in any conversation in the modern era. I dare any of you to go to your friend or a stranger or just about anyone and say you are overwhelmed with sadness. And I'm sure a lot of you are lucky and have someone with the EQ, that is the emotional quotient. It's a real thing to understand and to talk to you about that. But for most cases, and unfortunately in my case, for everyone I've ever known, it is like one of the most taboo subjects you could possibly bring up. It's like going up to someone and saying, "Oh my God, I desperately want to roll around in a pig pen naked and sever my nipples with a drill. I mean, it's that bad. I mean, I'm not overstating it. You might as well say that. It's like they just give you a look and back away slowly. I don't want to be any part of this conversation. And at least, that's my experience. I hope a lot of you have a different experience. If you don't, then golly, what a crappy species we are. The human species is really crappy with how we treat each other. And maybe some of you can relate. Now, I don't know how I've made it to where I'm at 100%, absolutely, 100% of everyone I know would just give me a weird look and back away slowly if I told them what I just said in the introduction of this podcast. And, truth being told, the most I'll get is, I'm sorry. That's it. And that's such a cop-out statement. I'm sorry. It's just the universal statement of I don't know what to say. It's filler. It just fills the empty air. Because just staring at you blankly is slightly more awkward. So instead, they say something. They say, I'm sorry. And that's it. That's all they can say. They may still very well back away slowly. But I firmly believe, I'm sorry, it's just filler. I don't care how you feel. This is my reaction to it, I should say. I don't care how you feel. That. Why are you sorry? You have nothing to do with this. So, and why are you telling me that? And what do you want me to say back to you? I'm sorry, you're sorry? Oh, then I'm sorry, you're sorry, that I'm sorry. Oh, then I'm sorry, that you're sorry, that I'm sorry, that you're sorry, that I'm sorry. And then it just goes on. It's just ridiculous. It's such a meaningless phrase that does not open dialogue. It kills dialogue before it began. That's my opinion. Sorry for the tirade, but that is my subtle opinion on those two words that I get a lot. Because otherwise, I don't ever get anything. I mean, there are exceptions, and those are my social workers. My last social worker was a licensed therapist, and she actually gave me the best therapy of my life. She would just talk to me about things, and it was such a perfect interaction. She just didn't sit there and stare. She never said how she felt, which is what I'm sorry is, saying how you feel in return. It doesn't really help much. But unfortunately, she quit. And so I got a new social worker, and I'm giving her, a fair shake. I enjoy talking to her, and she's never said I'm sorry. So far she's off to a pretty good start, granted. And I can talk to her, but that's just 1 hour out of a week. and it's scheduled. So, otherwise, I'm utterly isolated, essentially, with these emotions that I feel have come to a boiling point. I'll get into a little more why I think that, and it might be obvious. You can probably hear it in my voice. It's at a boiling point. It's not, at this point, it's no longer just sadness. It's now begging for some sort of relief. It's crushing. And the only thing I have is my dog. And, oh, he is so good and so empathetic. He's been trying to comfort me all day since I kind of woke up today, and the sorrow has now become not just a patch that I gleefully wear. It's like a ray gun I'm shooting outwards to others. And so he senses it, obviously, and he just comes up and tries to give me kisses and cuddle with me and give me love. And that's great. He's a beautiful dog, and I love having him, and I do have him. And I'm thankful for that. A million times thankful for that. But that's it. I can't talk to him. Or I can talk to him. He doesn't talk back. He doesn't understand what I might say. He understands I'm sad, obviously. He does. And he just wants to be there for me and comfort me. That's better than any friend I have. If they hear that I'm sad, it's back away slowly. Don't call them back. Wait till this flies over and then talk to them. That's how everyone I know, every human I know in my life treats it. And that's so lousy. It's just lousy. Even my parents, even my mom, who is no longer with us, but when she was around, she just wanted to run away from it. And she wouldn't actually hardly ever say anything but, I'm sorry. And then she'd pass it off to someone else and just run from it. She had no EQ to handle it. And certainly my father is left, of course. And I talked to him about a lot of these things. But I just still feel this crushing sorrow. And my hope is that expressing it here will perhaps give me some relief. So that's where we are today. And if you're still listening, thank you. I mean it sincerely. Sinceriously? Wow. That's a new word. I mean it sincerely and seriously. Sincerely. It works. Sorry. I do mean it. Thank you for listening. I mean it. Thank you. If you made it this far in this podcast. But it's not over yet. So, why am I so overtaken with sadness? I don't know if any one of you are actually wondering that. Because, to be brutally honest, you'd have to be rather thick to wonder why I'm sad. I mean, I'm someone who I've already expressed, is doing so much, but primarily at the forefront of it all, I am slowly dying from heart failure. And it is a death I would not wish upon my worst enemies. Not at all. It's truly horrendous. And it seems to be, frankly, worse when you're younger and stronger. And you would think it would be the opposite. I mean, I guess you could call it what you want. I've lived longer, way longer than what would otherwise be expected. Because I'm so young and fit when this started, that my body has been able to rebound and recover at certain times and fight back the inevitable. But frankly, I think that's worse. It just means I've got a slower, more painful death than, say, someone who's 85 or 90 years old. Someone of that age or with COPD, and if they get heart failure, it's a matter of a few weeks, they would probably say. In my case, it's just an ongoing what's the word? It's like watching the slow, painful decline of country or something, or a building that's abandoned. Because it's taking so long. Now, if you think life just by itself is a virtue, like, for example, if you're Catholic, you might think, holy smokes, that's actually wonderful that you're still alive. You've beat the odds by several years now. You're amazing, great, your body's fighting back. And that's if your only value is life itself. It's great he's still alive, even though he's been in a coma for 17 years, for example. I don't care that he's brain dead. He's still alive, and that's great. We should keep him alive. That's how some people perceive it. And I don't at all. I see life as something to be experienced, to be enjoyed, and frankly, that's it. That puts it succinctly and perfectly for me. Life is something that is to be enjoyed and experienced. And I am very happy that I've had my life. Truth being told, I am very happy that I lived my life to the fullest. A quote, Antonius Pius again, "It is not death that should be feared, but rather to never have lived." Life and living a proper, full life is the best thing out there, in my opinion. And I've done that. I have that. That's under my belt. It's done. I did it all. I am so happy that I did it all. From that perspective. But I am so not doing much of anything right now. It brings me to tears. Literally. I am now trapped inside my apartment with 16 liters of oxygen blasting up my nostrils 24/7 just to keep me alive, attached to a lawn hose, which frankly doesn't even reach some parts of the apartment, where I have to, for a moment, take it off and go do whatever it is I have to do. For example, it doesn't make it to a utility closet. So if I have to go grab something in there, I've got to, for a moment, take off my hose, take off my leash, and go do it, and put the leash back on. And that's my life. And that has been my life now for several years. It's just been trapped in this apartment. I can still do things, sure. I can still do enjoyable things, absolutely. And I do. But what were all of my favorite things, every single one, is now completely unattainable under any circumstance. Unless I want to just kill myself. I used to love travel and traveling. I've been all over the world. Truth being told, yeah, that's wonderful. I am so glad I have traveled so much and seen and experience so much of this little blue ball in space. And God help me, if you're listening and you are able to travel and to go places, I am telling you, man, you better do it. You will forever be asleep with your eyes closed if you don't see the world beyond the border of where you're living. What was the old English saying? Those who only know England do not know England, or something like that. I have to look it up, damn it. But you can't even know your own home if you haven't seen the other places of the world where other people may live so differently than you do. That brings you so much closer to your home and your roots. It's unbelievable. And I don't care who you are. If you are used to jolly old England, I would highly encourage you to maybe go deep into Eastern Europe or East Asia, South Asia. Go to Thailand or India. Well, you've been to India. You conquered it. So maybe don't go there. I don't think they are very receptive of the Brits in India still. I don't know. I guess I don't know. The judges there wear English wigs. You know how the judges in Britain wear the powdered wigs in court and are addressed as my lord? In India, the courts are the same way because it was part of the British Empire. They adopted the British court system. So the judges there wear these powdery wigs, and it looks so silly because there's this Indian guy who is clearly not British, and he's wearing a bright white powdery, silly 18th century wig. It just to me looks so silly, and then the barrister, the attorney, as you may have it, they address the judge as my lord. And every time I hear my lord in a thick Indian accent, I just giggle. It's just so silly to me. But hey, they adopted a useful court system that's sophisticated, that's great. But what they also adopted with it, the pomp and the what's the word for it? The presentation of it. So it looks very silly to me. Anyway, it's like seeing, let's say, a Cambodian guy in a great big cowboy hat. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. It's just silly. So, well, that's my point. If you don't know your home, travel. You'll learn so much more about your home. And you'll appreciate it so much. Few of you don't. Few of you might say, hey, my home sucks. I'm going to live here. I live in America. We get that a lot. Anyway, travel. Real travel was by far my most favorite thing for those reasons. God, I stuttered. For those reasons and more, it made me closer to my home. It taught me so much, though, about history and other culture. And I love history. I love language. I love geography. I'm a total geek. So for me, travel is like heroin for my brain. It's awesome. I highly encourage it. So I'll leave it there. But I loved it. Most favorite thing I would love to do ever is travel. I can no longer do that. I can't get on an airplane because it would likely kill me. That's just one. I used to also love going out to nice restaurants with friends. I was a foodie. I admit it. I was a foodie for all this. I can't go to restaurants anymore. I mean, I suppose it's doable. Briefly, for 20 minutes, I got emergency tanks. One lasts me just for 20 minutes because I have to put it all the way up. And I don't think I can really get to any restaurant, sit down, and enjoy the experience when all I have from my front door is 20 minutes. Take half the time to get to a car. So, dining out with friends is gone. I still enjoy some good food once in a while. I get it delivered or brought to me by someone. I realize I just said the same thing twice. I mean, delivered or brought to me by like someone I know, that's all. But that's not the same. For my favorite food, for example, which is sushi, one, getting it delivered in any sense freaks me out. I don't know if I can trust it. And two, it's the experience that I love. Ordering rolls after rolls after rolls, or pieces after pieces after pieces. Actually, I didn't do a lot of rolls. So I do a lot of, just nigiri style. And I'd never end with one course. I'd always do 3 or 4. Doing that with a friend while also downing some hot sake together at the sushi bar. It's an experience. It's all an experience that you can't duplicate. So that's gone for me. I can't ever do that. And I haven't been able to do it now for years. Those are just 2 examples. But all the things Actually, hold on. I'll give one final third example because it is so huge. Let me back up a little bit. Working. God, I miss working so much. And I think that's very common with males that go on disability. I think they begin to feel really despondent if they can't do what they do anymore. For me, and this is true with a lot of guys out there and also a lot of gals, I'm sure of it. A lot of you listening can relate. For me, my work and my job was a huge portion of my identity. It was who I was. And I actually loved it. I didn't just have a job that I had to put up with. I had a career in an area that I loved. I truly loved doing what I did. And I miss that so much. And I can't go back. Incidentally, before all this heart failure drove me into disability, just before that, when I was working, it was very much also tied in with travel and eating out. I traveled probably every other week someplace. A lot of times it was to some podunk town I never heard of. It was always to appear, not always, but for the most part it was to appear in a court case for my company, my employer. But I got to see many different states of the Union. And if I ever got to a bigger city that had really good eatery there, for example, Washington, D.C. or something, New York, San Francisco, any place like that, I would, actually Omaha, I went on my way to get really good food in Omaha. What I do is I go out of my way to treat myself to a really good, nice meal. And I never expense it because it was like easily $150 meal. But I was just treating myself. I sat there by myself, just people watched, and enjoyed delicious food. And I went to Washington because the last time I was there, it was about dinner time, and I was going out the front door when I bumped into a whole bunch of people from my company who were also going out to dinner. And they said, "Oh, hey, come to dinner with us." And I actually said, "I can't, guys. I'm sorry. I got plans." And they're like, "What? How could you have plans?" I'm like, I didn't explain. I said, "Sorry, I would go, but I have plans." And the plan was I had just a dinner reservation at the Occidental Grill. It's right a block away or so from the White House. And they have wonderful food. It's on Pennsylvania. If you go to D.C., I recommend it. I had a reservation for one there, and so I was getting an Uber to go across the river from Virginia and eat there. And that was my treat to myself. And so they said, "Oh, he's got a hot date. He has to have a hot date." And I didn't say anything, and I know they came up with that thinking I had a hot date, but I guess I did with myself, with good food. That's all I needed. I didn't. Sure, someone else there is great, but I loved the experience. So that was a triple whammy. I traveled for work and traveled and ate at a fine restaurant. That was a triple whammy. Man, that was a big win for all the things I like. Pardon me. I just can't do any of that anymore. Not at all. Instead, I'm stuck in my heart. So I've had to really rely on just a few things to get by. And I feel as though I've been living life on the skin of my teeth. So, I know that I have to be fully honest here and acknowledge the things I do have. I have my little dog, who is a constant source of entertainment or companionship or both. If I didn't have him, I would venture to say I truly have absolutely nothing left. Except I do have all my things. It's amazing how useless that feels at the end of times for yourself. You went through your life getting and collecting these various things because it would make you so happy to have them. And yeah, I still have all those things, but they don't really help. They don't help. So, but I have them. I have them. So there's something. I still retain the ability to walk, which is awesome. Because for a period I was relegated to a wheelchair. But I bounced back like my body likes to do. And so here I am. It's exhausting. It's just utterly exhausting, frankly. And that's why I'm just beside myself. I don't know what to do to make this better, so to speak. I mean, full disclosure, there's many times I just lose it laughing at my dog and the silly things he does. It's no joke. He is a silly little guy. He absolutely gives me a lot of joy, a lot of companionship in my life today. And that is wonderful. Yes, I absolutely love him very much. I know he loves me. So there's that. And I still do, through some miracle, have my home with such a small income compared to the time when I leased it out originally. So it's not like I live in a hovel, that's for sure. I'm definitely lucky that I live in a nice place. At great expense. I somehow get by once a month, so, I don't know how I do it. So, I don't know. I don't know where this leaves me. I acknowledge I have things. But so much of what were the things in life that I enjoyed the absolute most are all gone. Now, in one podcast, I deep dove the idea of loss and came to the idea that loss is an illusion. Because if you had something, you had it. And you can take that with you forever and ever. It won't ever be taken away from you. The fact that you had something good. And that counts. There's a lot of people that don't have that, ever. Whatever it is you might be thinking of. I'm certain that's true in my case. I'm absolutely certain there's many people who have not had the luxury of travel, who have not enjoyed eating out at nice restaurants with friends. Their best place they've been to is Sonic or something. Where I went to Le Bernardin in New York City with a friend. I just say that because it's like in the top 10 list of restaurants in the world. So, it's absolutely true that I did have those great things, and that can't ever be taken away from me. And there's a lot of people who will go through their life and never have that. It shocks me when I met someone relatively recently. I can't remember how it came up in just a normal discussion, but they said they've never seen the ocean. And I was just like, how is that possible? How can you be an adult and never, ever even seen the ocean? And it just boggles my mind. And they were none at all distraught by it. It was just matter of fact to them, and they couldn't care less. Because they know what they know. They're where they've always been, and that's that. They don't have any desire to travel or to leave town. So that blows me away. And I know there's a lot of people like that. So I am happy that I've decided to travel and see things because it's given me such a better perspective, my home, and even on myself. But yeah, never seen the ocean. I was just like, when I was a kid, I would go crabbing along the jetties on the Atlantic coast. My grandparents' house. We take dingy little fishing boats out for ocean water fishing, and you've never seen the ocean. I don't get it. I've walked along the Pacific beach in Australia, looking back on the other side of the Pacific. I've seen the Pacific from both sides and the Atlantic from both sides. Never seen the Indian Ocean, I think. I don't think I have. Or the Arctic Ocean. Those are the two I don't think I've ever seen. But, whatever. So, I get it. I get I have things, and I've had a good life, and I'm very happy for all of that. I'm grateful for all of that. I've just not been able to find anything to be of some equivalency to what I once had in life. At least, certainly not in the last couple of years where I've been trapped in my apartment, essentially. So, I guess the best thing I can do is keep things in perspective and realize, as I just have, that I've had a full life I have had the things that are most favorite things and enjoyed things that some people, maybe most people, will never get the luxury to enjoy. Perhaps just reminding myself of that not to pity them. Although it's hard not to. But to be grateful for what I have had. And still do. Those experiences have not been wiped away. They're forever there. They're a huge part of my personality. And what makes me, me. So, that is still something that is woven into my being, and still heavily influencing me to this day. So that's awesome, and I'm grateful. I'm happy that I did all that and have all that sewn into my very that is pretty awesome. Well, I'm surprised as I come to a closure of this podcast. I do feel a lot better. Yes, I've had the opportunity to vent a little bit, and that's always good. But I'm happy I reminded myself that all those things that I would say were my favorite things are still there, and that they are still deeply woven into my very being. And reaffirming that, I guess, would be the way to put it, truly did help elevate my well-being. It did help quite a lot. And so I'm actually quite surprised. Are you as surprised as I am? That I feel actually tremendously better having just rambled through that, because that's what happened. I just talked it out, recalled my previous conclusion in another podcast, and I'm not gonna say, oh, I'm totally fine now. I don't think that's possible. I really don't. But I am better than how I was when I started the podcast. And I like to say, better is better. So it counts for something. I actually think in this case it counts for a lot. So it did actually have a pretty positive influence on me to just talk about it and to revisit my thoughts relative to loss itself. And if you're curious, you can fish around for the podcast that I'm referring to. I think the name of it flat out is Loss is an Illusion. I think that's what the title is. And if you want to listen to that podcast, you'll realize what in God's name I'm talking about in a little bit more focused way. Here I'm just taking a conclusion that I've already arrived at and reminding myself of that, and that has helped me quite a bit. Of course, I'm not going to do the whole song and dance to how I arrived at that conclusion. So if you're, as I said, a curious person, you feel free to go check out that other podcast. I think it's just called Loss is an Illusion. Or something like that. I don't know. But all being said, I actually do feel a lot better. And I'm surprised by that. It's amazing what just talking about your fifis can do to help you. You know, I'm dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. What I'm going through is not a day at the beach. It is not something where you would never have to struggle with sadness or negative emotions. I think if you were dealing with heart failure and all of its fun and exciting side effects, you would be absolutely deranged. Not be sad about it. So, it's good to talk about. I guess my conclusion is if you're like me about anything that has got you down, try to find someone to talk to about it. And if it's something that you've been struggling with and you've maybe done things in the past or come to some conclusions in your mind in the past that have helped you see through things, remind yourself of those things that helped you. It's normal to get caught up in everything we do all the time, every day. As I said already, inadvertently, I guess, in this podcast, I'm busy. I'm dealing with a bunch of crap every day. Every day. I'm sure most of you are too. It's hard to remember those things that make you happy. Or at least that help you get through some of this sadness or whatever it is. Or I am absolutely certain my sadness overall will never go away. It's going to be with me until I die. Unless my doctor gives me some wackadoodle drugs. I don't see how it would ever not be a part of my life. Period. Just because of what I am dealing with as I die. So I'm just going to have to find ways to navigate that. And apparently, for me, talking about it helps. And as I already said, reminding myself of conclusions that have helped me in the past can help me again today, and they did. So, I think it's the best outcome you could ask for. All things considered. Really. I mean, I'm dealing with some very serious stuff. A lot of hard, difficult things. So, I am happy with the outcome that I have through sharing this to whomever wishes to listen today. I'm happy with those results. with everything I've gone through today, it's time for me to wrap things up. I've gone on for quite a while now at this time, and I have things I have to do, such as feed my dog. So, back to the grind, as it were. But I thank you so much for giving me your precious time to listen to my podcast, my endless banter. I do appreciate it so much. It truly means the world to me to know that my voice can go out there to so many people, and that I'm not alone in all these issues that I face as I decline. I know I haven't given much of a health update with respect to how I'm feeling lately. Let's just say lousy. Let's leave it at that, and perhaps next week I will give a more robust health update. I don't wish to belabor your time anymore today. So, with that said, I hope to speak to you next week, and I hope that there's not another hiatus for me, but you never know. And don't forget to follow the podcast and turn on notifications so you are aware of future podcasts as they become available. And again, thank you so dearly for your time. That's truly the best thing you can provide to me. If you want to support the podcast further, you can always go to patreon.com/my dog is going to eat my face. But, as I've said, you truly have already given me the best thing ever, and that is your time and a place for me to voice my troubles and my experiences here at the end of my life. So again, I thank you for that, and auf Wiedersehen.